Hey, I want to welcome all of our listeners today to the Legacy Insights, the podcast that provides guidance and guidance.
I'm like, keep
And more guidance. A lot of guidance. If we can do anything, we can guide you.
That's about all we can do.
Well, that's what you need. You need somebody to guide you.
3, 2, 1. Hey, welcome to Legacy Insights. This is the podcast that is full of stories, guidance, and inspiration for entrepreneurs at all different stages. Hey, I just want to welcome each of our listeners today. So glad you've chosen to join us, and hope you like what you hear. And if you do, at the end, I hope that you will go out and you will like and share the Legacy Insights podcast. As always, I am joined today by three wonderful co-hosts, Franklin Morris,
Hello.
Christina Howard,
Hello.
and Joel McCorkle.
Thanks, Steve. And today we have the opportunity to have one of our own, Josh West, here on our podcast. And Josh wears so many different hats. So let's see.
I did. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on here.
Yeah.
We're excited.
Glad to have you.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to see you guys doing this. I think it's a great opportunity for the whole for us as Legacy, but for all of Northeast Oklahoma.
Yeah, for
Great
sure.
opportunity. Yeah.
You were our inspiration.
Well, and I think we
Oh
talked about
golly,
Yeah.
don't say that.
Inspiration.
we don't want to tell people.
Don't look at my viewers. Yeah.
And I'm sure we got a story there, and he's guided us.
Yeah, we can talk about that. Yeah, it was good. So I came on. I guess we'll just lead into that.
Yeah,
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Well, I got my real estate license last summer, so I obviously I just finished my 8th year, and so but I was thinking for years when I was specifically with real estate, I have so many people that contact me during the week, especially in session, that say, "Hey man, what's a good realtor up there? I'm looking for a lake house," and so it was a kind of a natural fit to get into this, and you guys gave me an opportunity, and I'm finishing my first year in September, but it's been great. So when I came on, I was talking about podcasts, and you said, "Yeah, we have podcast equipment, and this is something I want to do." And so we have been doing one. This is my 5th year to do one, and it's for providing information and resources to all of Oklahoma, but my constituents. It's a great tool to have, and you can get your message out to millions of people. I don't have millions of people, but yeah, it's a great tool, and so. It's fun, and like I said, I'm glad you guys are doing this. You guys have set a benchmark. There's no other companies up here doing this, and so I think that people will use you guys as a standard and don't copy.
That's right.
You're not allowed to do a show, but thank you for having me.
Josh, how could the listeners find your podcast?
So we shoot during session. We will do an episode a week, and we put it out on Spotify and we put it out on Apple. And it's just called Inside the Capitol. So 5 years ago, actually a Democrat friend of mine, so Colin Walkie was an urban Democrat. He was, he was an attorney from Oklahoma City. We came in together, views 180 politically. But we came in together, and we got to a point during my first 2 years where back-to-back special sessions. It was regular session, back-to-back specials, concurrent session, and then regular session again. So we were up at the Capitol for about 18 months, and it was my first 2 years. And so sometime during that, during the first 2 years, probably within the first 3 or 4 months of being up at the Capitol, we ended up at a reception or something, and we just started talking. We still, we don't. There's not a whole lot that we agreed on, especially politically, but we started talking about a lot of stuff that we did agree on. Data privacy was one. We run data privacy legislation together. We had Mark Zuckerberg's mentor come on an interim study and talk about the dangers of, he was real big with the Netflix series Social Dilemma.
Yeah.
So he came on, and so obviously, Republican, Democrat, most people agree that your private information should not be sold to data harvesters. And there's no, they're not breaking a law because there's no federal laws against it. A lot of states have begun to come up and do state laws concerning data privacy. So that's what kind of sparked our interest, and we just became really good friends. I mean, we still, our views politically, like I said, are 180. We would vote against each other, debate against each other. But we started this, and I would have, Colin would be sitting across the table from me with a Democrat guest. I'd have a Republican guest, and we
It's great.
had conversations on really toxic issues, but we weren't calling each other names.
Yeah.
I wasn't yelling. And so I think that's what sparked it. And 2022, Walkie decided not to run. He's now practicing. He's doing data privacy law. He was an attorney. Still a great friend of mine, but we've continued the podcast. And, it's every year, our platform gets a little, I guess we get more comfortable doing the podcast and we get more, I guess, notoriety with the podcast, with guests wanting to come on. And so it's been a great thing for us. And, I think it's going to be a great thing for you all.
Awesome.
And what did you tell Steve and Joel when you were encouraging them to start the Legacy Real Estate podcast?
Well, I just talked about how we do it and how it's beneficial to us. I mean, you can get whatever your message is, no matter if it's real estate, if it's politics, if it's name a topic. It's a great way to get that out to the general public. And when you have different guests on, I mean, they're people don't get bored. They come on, they look for it every week when these podcasts are released. And so I just like I said, I think the only thing I really did was just talk about my experience with doing a podcast and how we've done it. And I know that they had kind of looked into it, in the past, and they had all this equipment, but it's very technical. So, William and you and running this stuff, it's not an easy thing when you're talking about mixing it and everything. So,
Right.
it's a kind of jump in the fire situation, drink to the fire hose.
Franklin,
That's what we're doing.
Franklin early on in our podcast mentioned countercultural. That this is counterculture. I never really thought of it that way. But now that we're into it, and, logistically, we are so very, very blessed to have William's expertise there, be able to do it. Could not do it without it. But really, what Josh did to help me, because we were kicking this around, all kinds of schools, training, everyone's saying, man, you got to do a podcast, or at least consider doing podcasts. It's a lot easier said than done.
It is.
And really what Josh was a catalyst for me was him sitting there with this confidence saying, man, you just do it.
Yeah.
You just do it. Because you think, okay, I'm going to have to sit down, hours of scripting and all this, but just do it.
The best shows are
that was
conversations. I mean, even with me, if I'm giving a speech, and I take notes. When I was in the military, when I was injured in Iraq, I had TBI, and so my short-term memory stinks. And so you're always going to see me with a note tab. But for the most part, it's a lot better when I go talk to a group when we leave it open and take their. I want people to know that, hey, I can as a politician, I can sit up here and talk for as long as you want. You give me a microphone, I'm going to figure out how to use the time you're giving me. But I want to hear from you. And so that's our best podcasts have just been conversations. And people see that, hey, they're just normal people.
Right.
I mean, with politicians, a lot of people think that you're somehow special. And dude, I'm a redneck from Delaware County that has a wife, an awesome wife. I have 4 kids. I deal with the same issues that every family deals with, whether it's marriage stress. My kids are acting crazy, or I got 2 boys that are driving now, and so I'm staying up at night worrying about where my boys at, are they? And so I deal with the same stuff, but people need to see the human side of you too. So that's a great way to, I'm the same daggone way at that Capitol that I am in Grove, Oklahoma, and I will never. We have term limits, of course, but I'll never change. I mean, I don't. If I change, then people would think that. Look at Wes, man. He's and a title doesn't mean anything to me. This is a big responsibility. Every rep's got about 40,000 constituents, and it comes with a big responsibility. And everything you do inside that beautiful building is funded by your tax dollars. And so if you keep that in the forefront of your mind, and just remember where you came from, then you'll probably be successful not only in your district but at the Capitol.
Well, I'll tell you what, I've known, your brother.
Yeah.
And really, I've met you a time or two, but really getting to know you and working here at the organization. But just really proud to have you part of our team.
No, I
and I'll tell you, very proud of the service. And you could tell the commitment and the passion that you have for public service as well as your military service.
No, I appreciate that.
And
I really do.
that's quite a sacrifice.
I think, Mark Wayne Mullen's a good friend of mine. We, I don't know if you know, Dr. Hopper just passed recently, had his service here, but Jan is Dr. Hopper's wife. That's Mark Wayne Mullen's aunt. And so, we were early teenager years when we met each other for the first time, and he's never. That's one thing that, love or hate Senator Mullen, he is the same person that he left Westville when he went to D.C. It's the same person, 12 years later. And I appreciate that about him. People always have difference of opinions, and he's very vocal with his thoughts and what he says. But he's an Okie. I mean,
I think people see that same thing in you.
I really
grew
hope
up
so.
here.
Yeah.
People that know you have known you for 40-some years.
Yeah.
And I think that they feel like you're still that same guy and you're approachable. So what made you decide to go into politics?
The biggest, I'd say, I distinctly remember my dad took me. So Rick Littlefield was elected in 1982 as a House member, and he replaced Wiley Sparkman, who had been in the House District 5 representative from 1952 to 1982.
Wow.
And that was back before term limits. And so Rick came in, and Rick at the time, he was working at the sheriff's department. His father was a sheriff. He'd been through CLEAT, and then when that seat came open, when Wiley was old. He looked old in the pictures when he was elected in 1952. And,
Right.
and so Rick was elected, and so I was in Cub Scouts. I was 9 or 10, and I was selling popcorn. And Rick had the Overflow petroleum plant, and so we go to his office, and he buys popcorn or whatever. But I'm looking on his wall, and he had a picture of him and President Reagan. Reagan was there in 1983 at the Oklahoma Capitol, and him and the governor and a bunch of people that, this in elementary school when I was a kid, we got coloring books, and it had your federal delegation, your state delegation. That was awesome. And so, but I was Rick. I was like most of the, most kids when they think of politicians, like, oh, he's some. No, Rick was a Delaware
star.
County man. Yeah. And so, but when I left, I said, now what's Mr. Rick again? And my dad's like, well, he's our state rep. And so my dad and Rick graduated together, and Tom Steen and all those guys. And so I said, well, I want to be like Mr. Littlefield. And so my mom at a young age, I looked at my path, I guess. And my mom would don't mess up, man. You won't. And so everything I did, even as an adult, especially,
had that in mind.
I want to make sure that I'm not embarrassing my family and ruining my chances of running for office. So, I moved. I graduated high school in '95. Joined the military. I came back to Oklahoma in 2010. And Dr. Cox, my predecessor, was halfway through his tenure, and great statesman. Dr. Cox did a great job. He was there for 12 years. He was also my neighbor, and so I was fishing in Colorado with my brother in July of 15, and I had seen, Cox's seat was coming open. So you had Josh Russell at the time. He was kind of announcing Joseph Wilhelm. There was a Democrat named Matt Allen, and we came down. My brother and I came down the mountain to get some groceries, and I seen it pop up on Facebook, and I said, man, I can beat those guys. My brother said, are you going to do it? And I said, I think so. And then it was kind of one of them deals where I don't care what your education level is, your profession. When you run for office, there's nobody. It is drinking through a fire hose. There's not a school, even if you have a degree in poli science. There's not a school to go to teach you how to do it. It's all about jumping there and doing it.
Right.
And so Cox. I remember I got back from vacation, and Cox came by my house and he said, "Are you going to run?" And I said, "Man, we're really thinking about it." And he said, well, come to my house. He had started a legislative weekend 5 years before he got out, and we've continued it. But the last day, they do a cookout at his house, and it'd be reps, and it's open to all elected officials and their families. We want families to come down here. And I was down there on the dock, and Lieutenant Governor Todd Lamb at the time was there. His security, Terry Jones was Doc's old field rep. Mm-hmm. He had a bunch of people on Dr. Cox's dock. And Anastasia Pittman, her and Dr. Cox came in the House together in 2004, and then she went on to the Senate. But she rides up on a jet ski, and he said, Senator Pittman, this is my neighbor Josh. She's thinking about running. And she said, well, are you going to do it? And I said, well, we're just making sure. And she said, what's your hesitation? And I said, well, I've got a wife and 4 kids in rural Oklahoma, and I've got to raise $200,000. And she said, well, baby, everybody's got that problem, whether you're rural or urban. She said, have you prayed about this? And I said, yeah. She goes, have you talked to your pastor? And I said, yeah. And she goes, well, we about to pray right now, boy. And so she gets this prayer circle on the dock.
Wow.
That's
and
cool.
So she's leading this prayer you remind me like a spitting Pentecostal pastor.
Love it.
She's just twisting around.
Awesome.
She's like, give him a sign, God. And so, but during her prayer, so the radio was on at Cox's dock. And so during her prayer, God Bless America came on the radio.
Oh,
and she's
wow.
like, there's your sign, boy. She's like, you ain't got a choice. And she said, I'll come down here and wear a T-shirt that says "This Democrat loves West," and I said, "Well, don't do that." so it kind of just
Wow.
once we decided to do it, obviously I had to have the full backing of my wife. You cannot do this job without having a spouse that supports
sure.
you, because it's not only you running, it's them running, it's your life is public, your kids' life is public, and so once we decided, which was in July of 15, then we just hit the ground running. We didn't know what we were doing. We figured it out. And so that's why I'm always like, you tell me, it's that military mentality, I guess. You tell me to do something, I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to figure out how to make it, and I don't care what it is. I was a poor kid from Delaware County growing up, and, my dad worked his butt off, but we were poor. Great home life, stable home life, parents who loved me, I had a brother, and but everything I've done in my life, my parents didn't have the money to buy me a car or send me to college or whatever, so you just kind of figure it out. And I think today's society, we talk about it a lot. I need adversity in my life that helps me grow as a person, a human, a father, a parent, and so adversity is good because you figure it out.
Absolutely.
I'll
Great
tell you what, we
teacher.
are. This is a business, small business, and entrepreneurial podcast. And I'm telling you, right there, what you were saying was tying it all into, because
Yeah.
you're also entrepreneur.
Absolutely.
You're also a small buessman.
Absolutely.
Obviously, a realtor, got the business side there too. But everything that you're saying, I think sometimes that we sit down, we think things a little bit too hard. Maybe we
Overthink it, yeah.
And sometimes it's just a matter of just getting in there.
If
It's
you
a
overthink
passion that
it, you'll
wanna
talk
do.
yourself out of it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean, it's very easy to do. Even I could talk myself out of it a lot. With the business side, we got into out of a necessity, really, with my wife's a therapist. She's got a private practice downtown. The building that we were in, and I had a little district office down there, and the owner of the building was going to sell it, and I was thinking, oh man, I don't. So out of necessity, we end up buying the building. I have a partner, Justice Shismore, and I own it's called Spring Branch Properties, and it's the building down there where it used to be Annie's Gallery.
Yeah.
So we
Great
bought
location,
that.
great building.
And yeah, it's such an awesome building. What's cool about that building is most people don't know is the bricks on that building came from the old Southwest City School when they tore it down.
That's
I did not
beautiful
know
building.
that.
Yeah, I didn't know
They
that
did.
either.
Yeah, so those bricks are 100. I mean, that
Wow.
school in Southwest City was built in like 1880 or
yeah.
something. So it got a
cool.
lot of history, and it's a beautiful building. But there's a lot of stuff that we had never owned. It's a big building. It's 12,000 square foot. You've got 8 commercial, ranging from, 900 square foot to 3,000 square foot. And you're dealing with people, you're dealing with businesses, other businesses, and little things.
And you have really filled it up too.
Yeah, it's
It's-
neat to drive by there and see all the cars there, and
It is.
It's
space
been
is all
great. I
full.
mean,
And the new signs.
yeah, it's been we have really great. We had, the deal with anytime a commercial transaction, you have tenants that are there, and you're dealing with leases, and so we had to raise the rent. We had no choice, and we did that. And the ones who wanted to leave, it was not personal. We get it. But the ones who came in, they're established. They're great businesses, and it's a pretty cool. Like you mentioned, the parking lot. When I go there at lunchtime, and Raggedy's is there, and it's just been there since the day one, and
Very
21
popular.
years. The parking lot's full, and then we have your little. It all works together. Your boutiques that are there, they count on the traffic from the restaurant, and we've
Yep.
got. A dance studio. We've got a 24-hour women's. Kim just opened up her Kim
Fitness
Springfield's.
studio.
Yeah, 24-hour women's gym. What an awesome thing.
So is that where the
Look at
barbershop
Melanie.
is too?
That's right next to the barbershop. So yeah, we got Brandon Edge.
Okay.
He's got his barbershop there. So we've got. It's kind of like outside of Brandon and myself, and you've got Carrie Stewart. It's like a hub for women.
For women,
bosses.
it really
yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I have a question for you too,
Yes, sir.
because you have jumped into a lot of new things. You haven't always had that property, and you haven't always been a politician or et cetera. So what do you do when you are thinking about doing, like, what is going through your mind in terms of doing something new? Because I think sometimes people are afraid of doing new things. So
I mow my yard. That's my time to think. I love mowing my yard. Really, everybody needs an outlet. Some people. Steve, you ride bikes. Joel, you're another one that's spread thin. You've got all kinds of stuff. I know you spend a lot
I
of time
have
with
my
your family.
boat. I have
Got
my
your boat.
Yep, that's my.
Boat time.
yeah.
Now, Christina's husband, one of the I mean, if you've never seen the detail and the artwork, he's a stud. I don't know if he does
He is
that
a
for
stud.
fun on the side, but
It's fun to him.
it has to be. But
Yeah,
he
but it's a
produces
business.
it's art. I
Yeah.
mean,
It really
those
is.
are one of a kind
Incredible pieces.
things.
Yeah.
But I mow my
you.
yard, and then I think about it, and obviously I discuss everything with my wife. I'm a very blessed person. When I look back, at my life growing up, I mentioned I was just a poor kid from Delaware County. I live right over here on Grand Street, 703 South Grand. The house is still there. And then it's next to Todd East
the
clinic
wellness?
there. Yeah,
Okay.
it's next to his place. But raised there, like I mentioned, very stable. My parents loved each other. They showed my brother and I what it's like to have a marriage, and also see that, hey, your parents don't always get along, and you figure out ways to get through it. And so, but if I look back at my life, and I'm not blessed over anybody. I don't think God says I'm going to bless Wes, because sometimes I think that he's mad at me. But we obviously, I have been blessed, and I do realize that. And I could look back in my life, and I was raised in. I'm very fortunate that my family raised me in church, and I did stupid stuff as a teenager, a young person, but I always had my faith to fall back on. There were many times in my life where I had to step back and take a big look at it, because there's been times that I was mad at God. I got shot in Iraq, went through a year of surgeries and physical therapy, and lost soldiers, and then I had a terrible addiction to painkillers. I mean, OxyContin, oxycodone, whatever, and I justified it because it was legal. I'm not buying this stuff black market. And this story, like I said, you give me a microphone, brother, I'm going to talk. It was one of those deals where, I'd had dozens of surgeries, and I hurt. It was legitimate pain. But your body gets used to that stuff. And so I'm taking 10, 12 oxys a day, and my doctor was like, Wes, you're going to ruin your liver. I mean, this is not normal. And so, and then there was a time when I was drinking fifth every couple of days. You would never know. I was a fully functioning addict, alcoholic, about 15, 20 years ago. And I look back and I use that. I mean, I learned something from with leaders. Every leader I've ever had in my life, I learned something, whether it's good, whether it's not to do, whether it's something not to do. And so I look back at that time of my life, and I thought, man, that sucked. But it gave me a great platform to talk to other people who also may be struggling. And I can tell them, hey, I'm no different than you. There's nothing in your life that you're going through that I probably haven't experienced. I just figured it out, that I'm not going to be a victim. And so, as mentioned, I talk to my wife about every decision, and we go into this thing. We obviously pray about everything we do. And it's a family decision. And if we feel like, the return on investment is going to pay off maybe 10 years down the road, but if we feel like it's got potential, then sometimes you got to take a chance. Because you never, with any business, I mean, when you guys decided to, move buildings and build this beautiful building, there's a lot of cost that comes with this.
Yeah.
And now you got to figure out how to pay for it.
Yeah.
So, but you took a chance. And now you're looking here versus in December when we did a ribbon cutting, you've got several businesses in here. And so,
All
it,
the
it was just a
activity,
matter of
it's-
thinking about it and not making a rash decision. And, if we feel like we're being led to do it, we just do it. And sometimes I've made some decisions that I thought I was supposed to do, and it turned out that, I had an insurance agency back years ago, and was not the best financial decision I ever made. And so, but we figured it out and made it past it. So,
I think a point that you keep going back to, which is so important for entrepreneurs, is that you have to figure it out, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's the military, whether it's your political career, whether it's real estate or insurance. I mean, there's so many things that you've done, and part about owning a small business is there's a lot of different things that you have to do, different than maybe someone that works for a company. And I think that's a good example that you have to, sometimes you just have to get in there and you just have to do it. You have to put the work in and you have to figure it out.
and I want to see it you got a whiteboard in here. Like my life, I want to see stuff written out.
Yeah.
Even if I'm taking a class, I need to be in front of a teacher, writing stuff out. And I learned by just repetition. And some of that is because I had a TBI. And so if I'm not, I forget small things. So it's repetition, but I want to see stuff. When we come up with some type of a business model, whatever, I want to write it out and make it a working document, because things are going to change. I mean, you guys have probably changed your business model a dozen times since you guys started the company.
Well, this is what our fourth. We have 3 lead-in podcasts because we changed our 2.
Right,
Not
yes.
we're 3. Williams, give me a 2, or is that a peace sign? I think it's 3.
And I think that's a good point that, when you're in business for yourself, you have to be flexible. right? You've got
Yeah,
to be able
be
to
fluid.
adjust on the fly while making a good decision, or
Yeah.
with the best information that you have.
And don't be afraid to, like, my accountant, God bless her, she really is the one who helps us out with on a lot of things. But don't be afraid to ask those questions, because then if
Yeah.
you don't, then you're probably going to fail if you're not asking
Absolutely.
questions.
Yeah.
I wish people, like, we have lost at somewhere, not just with politics, but in general, life in general, where our lives are consumed by this, 2x6 computer in your pocket, and people, they don't want to have conversations anymore.
Yeah.
But when I came in office in 16 versus now, and it was getting bad then, especially on social media, but now, I mean, people don't want to talk to other people they disagree with. They don't want to. I love to debate.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
okay to have debate, and it's okay to have somebody judge me, whatever, politically or whatever. I don't care, but I can debate somebody, but most people won't, because they can't back up their own position. But they wake up, they turn on Fox or CNN or whoever they follow, and they take that as biblical, and they don't want to have conversations anymore. And that's what stinks.
Yeah.
And then people get real bold and brave behind a keyboard. And if someone's upset at Joel, that's Joel's. You've got several businesses. You've no doubt made somebody mad.
Oh, for sure.
Well, it's very easy to get on the computer and just go talk smack with Joel and your whole family. But they see you, in the grocery store at a ball game, it's going to be a lot different. And we need to remember that we're people.
Yeah.
I'm not some robot that lives on a computer.
Yeah.
And I don't want to answer every question on a dadcom computer. Call me. You got my number.
Yeah.
If I've been here for 8 years, my personal cell phone number is out there. So if you got a problem and you don't feel like that you've been helped, and a lot of times when I do get calls, it's somebody that is at that point in their life where they've reached out to every person they know to. They're upset usually when they call you. But with the political job, it is a big responsibility, but I have access to a lot of resources that can help those people. And once they find out, they may be mad at me. Some of my best friends are some that were really upset with me, like during the teacher walkout. And then now 6 years after that, like, well, Wes helped me. He actually did help me, and just because this group was saying one thing about him, and so they actually got to know me. So I think you got to get to know people, and you can't live your whole daggum life on social media and think that that's real life. Think that clicks equals the clicks and likes. A lot of people get their joy, and that's their
Right.
that gives them some type of reassurance in their life, and I don't need that.
Yeah.
And how important do you think, I know you mentioned kind of this before, but how important do you think character is in life and business and et cetera?
Well, if you don't have a strong character and a high moral compass, then there's no hiding it. Especially in politics and in business. If you're doing shady stuff, it's the realty world the real estate world's a small world. Word's going to get
Gonna
out.
come
So yeah, I think you have to have, and that goes back to home life. I mean, I was raised by an awesome mom and dad, and so they installed those values in me. And then the whole military thing. I mean, I still, there's 11 principles of leadership. There's all kinds of acronyms that and then you have the Army values is loyalty, duty, respect, self-service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. I still, and probably the most important one out of that one would be, well, they're all important, but for me in the military, it was that personal courage. I'm willing to, and self-service, honestly, that is the key to success, I believe, is self-service. You got to go into this thing knowing that it's not just about you. Your business affects a lot of other people's lives, and so you have to have that self-service. And so all those characteristics, I think that it's very important. And like I said, in politics, you're judged. Your life is public, and so if you're not, a good person, people are going to know about it. There's no hiding anything. And so it all goes back to the way I was raised, and I never wanted to embarrass my dad, embarrass his name. And at 47 years old, I still don't want to embarrass my parents. And so, like I said, I think that's also a part of being a rural legislator. When I go so I'll have guys and girls from other parts of the state, reps and senators come, and they'll come here, and we'll go to Walmart. And they'll be like, oh, my gosh, Wes, I'm not ever going to Walmart with you again, because it may turn into a 2-hour conversation.
You know everybody in
yeah.
there.
Well, but that's good, honestly,
Yeah.
because a rural rep or an urban rep, your district may be 4 square miles, and it's based on population, and you may not have any schools or businesses. That may just all be houses. Those people don't really know their rep. At a rural rep, my district isn't huge by any means, about 960 square miles, but it's hard when there's a lake in between everything. So, but the same people who vote for you, the ones that see you in church and at ball games and the grocery stores, and if they have an issue, whether they're happy, mad, or sad, I know that my district is going to reach out to me and tell me. And I need that because I'm confident in my votes that, I've listened to my district because it's a representative form of government. I'm not voting Josh West up there. I'm voting House District 5 in Oklahoma. And so, at this point, people knew me before I was elected, and they know that I'm accessible. They can pick up the phone and call me, but they also know that I try to be a good person. I don't think anybody down there or anybody that comes to work here every day, they don't wake up and say I want to do a bad job. Most people wake up and they want to do a good job. Mm-hmm. You got to also allow people to make mistakes, and so that's part of it too. But I think the characteristics that you talked about, that's important, and not just politics, not just business, but just being a person in general. Be a good person.
To be continued.
I hope you enjoyed part 1 of our visit with Josh West. Part 2 will be airing on October 11th, and we hope that you will join us then as well. In the meantime, if you would, please, we would love to have you like and subscribe to our podcast, which airs on Spotify and YouTube. From all of our cast and guests of our podcast, we are so grateful that you have joined us, and we hope you have a wonderful day.